Hello there, welcome back. I'm DeeDust, and tonight I'm going to be sharing a personal story of my own. Eyes Up High. The summer before my senior year in high school, I went to New Orleans with my Aunt Lisa. She had shown up on the doorstep without any warning, a 7-hour drive for her, and declared she was going. Who wanted to go with? As the only person in the house with no job or other obligations, and the excitement of a teen who's never been there before, I immediately volunteered. It took until lunch before my parents consented, but we were on the road heading south only a few hours later. Lisa had been taken by the sudden urge to visit, and was not the type of person to think on things too long. If she wanted something, she went for it immediately, no matter what. This trip was no different. We drove for the rest of the day and slept in her car at a gas station. It only took a few more hours the next morning to get to the city and find the hotel she had booked for us. This was back in 2000, long before Katrina, and I haven't been back there since, so I'm not sure how much of the things we saw there still exist. Lisa wanted to do everything once we got there. Everything being every single bar up and down Bourbon Street, of course. A boring thing for me because I had the kind of face no one in their right mind would ever believe was 21. I ended up with rainbow-colored hands declaring me underage, and often sat with the bouncers just waiting for her to decide we needed to go to the next one. It wasn't all that bad, I guess. The bouncers were all really fun to hang out with, and they were great storytellers. It didn't matter to me if they were making them up or not. The way the streets got so packed and rowdy at night made me believe everything they were telling me actually happened. From drunk celebrities running into walls, all the way to fights that should have had their own soundtrack. It was an interesting way to spend the hours before I had to drag my drunk aunt back to our room. The mornings were better. Lisa would sleep until past noon to get rid of the hangover, and I went out to the French Quarter on my own. I'd follow tourist groups and go into all the different stores I came across. Around noon, I'd let my nose decide where I wanted to eat. I went on a walking tour of the cemeteries, and even a daytime ghost tour that Lisa, opinionated skeptic that she is, would have spent the whole time arguing with anyone who bothered to listen to her. On our last day there, Lisa actually managed to drag herself out of bed in the morning, and insisted we go on a tour of the Garden District. Her whole reason for coming to New Orleans had not actually been to drink herself to an early grave, but to see all the beautiful homes there. Which was news to me. We took a streetcar away from our hotel and met with a brightly smiling woman in front of a restaurant who ended up herding us all along once there were 12 of us there. She talked too fast for me about a lot of things that bored me. I quickly lost interest and dropped to the back of the group. It was rather painfully obvious we were all tourists from behind. One couple even wore matching fanny packs, and wondering how anyone could think that was a good idea kept me busy as the tour went from one house to the next. It was pretty, don't get me wrong, but everything was so close together, I couldn't imagine living in most of the places we were shown. The flowers and gardens were a plus. It was a shame the tour guide was more interested in reciting facts about the architecture than exploring the beauty around us. The group was stopped at one home. I can't remember what street we were on now, and I was admiring the way roses had been coaxed around one of the ever-present fences when I saw something that made me freeze. Across the street from us, the house with the roses was rather plain when compared with the other houses on the street. It was a 2-level home with an attic, and it was the open attic window that had all of my attention. There was a man standing there casually, wearing a white t-shirt and looking down at the group. He was looking down at us through the scope of what looked like a high-powered hunting rifle to me. I gaped stupidly up at him for a moment before reacting on instinct. I grabbed my aunt and dragged her around the corner of the block. The tall hedges behind the fence of the corner house wasn't much cover, but it got us out of his line of sight at least. I told Lisa that we had to leave. We had to go. She refused, of course, because we had paid money for this tour. Even when I stopped freaking out enough to explain to her why we needed to leave, she wouldn't listen to me. Before I could even stop her, she'd gone back around the corner. She was back a few seconds later with a scoff and was rolling her eyes at me. "There's no one there now. Let's get back to the tour." The attic window was empty when I looked around the corner. Empty, but still open. My aunt was already back with the group at the next house. I stood there for a moment, torn about what to do. I couldn't just leave her there, but I didn't trust that empty window would stay that way. I moved quickly when the group started walking and darted across the street so that I was on the same side as the house. It'd be easy enough to press myself up against any fence there and not be seen, but I could also keep an eye on the attic window just by walking near the street, which is what I did as the group moved slowly down the street. They seemed to be taking their sweet time as the guide explained, with a bright smile that never wavered, how old each home was and who built it. I only took my eyes off the window and house a few times, when the uneven pavement threatened to trip me. The last time I did that, when I looked back up, the window wasn't empty anymore. The man was back, leaning against the side of the window with his arms crossed over his chest. He had no gun, but his face was eerily calm as he stared down right at me. It felt like he was staring at me, but also through me at the same time, like I was there, but I didn't really exist. It didn't seem to bother him that I had seen him looking down a scope at us just a few minutes ago. I stared right back at the man, more than a little terrified, but convinced that as long as I didn't look away, he wouldn't go for his gun again. I didn't move from my spot until I saw the group turn onto another street out of the corner of my eye. I was rooted to the spot, locked in a frightening staring contest that ended with me ducking close to the fence line and just running. We finished the tour, and my aunt never brought the subject up again. I think she forgot all about it. No one else seemed to have noticed anything odd had even happened, and I didn't mention it at all. I was just glad when we packed up to leave after lunch. Remembering his expression still kind of chills me today. On the drive home later that day, I would think about the differences between a sociopath and a psychopath. The differences that had seemed so small to me before, and I would realize that they were a lot larger than I ever thought. I don't know if that man was a psychopath. I don't even know a single thing about him. It's just that his actions unnerved me so much. I don't know if the man still lives there after Katrina tore through the city, and I'm not willing to go back and find out myself. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this story, hit that like button below. Consider sharing and subscribing to my channel to be alerted to new uploads. And if you'd like to see something specific here, leave a comment below and I will look into it. Good night, everyone.